Welcome back to our show, Empower Your Life. I'm your host, Cindy Marie. Our next guest, he's a coach, transformational leadership mentor, keynote speaker, musician and producer, an author for about 8 number one selling books and more to come this year. Not to forget, he also launched a YouTube channel and podcast show named Your Ultimate Life Formula. I cannot wait for us learning many great practices or principles towards greatness in this episode with our next guest. So without further ado, may I welcome to you our next guest, Mr. Kellan Fluckiger. Hi, Kellan. Thank you so much for being part of this show. How are you?
I'm fine, and you're welcome. And the first thing I'd like to do is just honor you, Cindy, for the work. Doing a podcast is a labor of love. It's a lot of work that you put into it and a lot of effort and energy. And you're trying to do it to help people, to add good to the world, to lift and bless people's lives and stuff. And that's a wonderful thing. And so I just want to start by honoring you for the effort and energy you're putting into this, finding guests and producing shows and all the work that it takes. You do out of love to help people empower their lives. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. For a lot of people who don't know you yet, so I am very excited for you to share your journey. I know you're wearing many hats, and it could be probably more than 1 hour or 30 minutes that you can share your story with us, but maybe you can summarize the connecting dots of musician, producer, keynote speaker, and all of those things that I have introduced so people can get to know your story. So share with us your story.
I will. And here's the interesting thing. All that fancy stuff. Yes, I actually have written 16 books, and I have 3 underway right now. Yeah, and I help people write books, and I coach, and I have a coaching practice with clients around the world. And yes, I own a recording studio, and yes, I've done a bunch of music, and yes. But none of that matters very much to you, the listener. What matters to you is for you to believe in your own heart that it's possible. And in fact, it is in your hands to create your own life. I call it the ultimate life, a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy that you create by serving with your divine gifts. And so the big long list of things I've done don't matter, except maybe as an example that you can have anything you want. And that might sound like a bunch of hype, but I'm about to explain why.
Okay. Go ahead.
I will. Why and how, more important than why and how. You can have anything you want. And here's the thing that matters. All of that stuff that Cindy listed has all just been in the last 14 and a half years. Before that, I spent 30 years in the energy industry, and I had big dog positions, leaders, C-suite in the United States and Canada. I made a lot of money, this, that, and the other, but it wasn't very fulfilling at all. And the reason is because I lived with decades of depression. When I was born in San Francisco. I was raised in a 2-parent household that looked pretty normal. But the truth is, my mom got married young, and she had a very particular idea about religion and how kids should be raised. And so the discipline that I got being raised would be felony child abuse. I got a lot of beatings, and that went all the way through the time I lived at home until I left home at 17. And what happened because of that is I left home with the feeling that I wasn't okay. I wasn't good enough. I never would be. Something was really wrong with me, was number one. Number two, I had this warped idea that the most important assignment I had was to prove to my mom that I was okay. And so I kept trying to do things that, made her, quote, put the stamp of approval on my forehead. And at the same time, I believed that I was not good enough. And so those two things were in conflict all the time. And what it had me do is I would create a lot of success. I got a good job and I made a lot of money. And then I would be successful, and I would think, oh, I shouldn't have this. And I didn't think it consciously. This is all subconscious stuff that goes on in our minds. And then I would sabotage it. I would do stuff that would get me in trouble. And then I'd have to go somewhere else and leave that job. And I did it again. I'd create big success and make a lot of money. I did the same thing with relationships. And I say silly because I didn't understand. I never went to talk to anyone. I never got help. I just believed that there was something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lived this roller coaster of depression, success, and self-sabotage over and over and over again. And for 35 years, I left home at 17, and I didn't change that pattern of behavior until I was 52. So 35 years I did that, and I was married and divorced 3 times. I was in and out of rehab, and I had addiction problems, and I made a lot of money, and I kept trashing the contracts and careers that I had. And then I would go do it again and it sounds like madness, but it's kind of like movie stuff. On the outside, it looked like, wow, this big successful person. And on the behind the scenes, it was this disaster of trashed relationships, drug addiction, just crazy stuff. And so the turning point came in August of 2007. And that's when I started over. And here's what happened. On a Friday night in August of 2007, I came home from work, and I was getting ready to go out and party for the weekend. And it literally would have been till Monday or Tuesday. At that time, I had a $3,000 a week cocaine addiction. I was making so much money that didn't matter. I had 4 kids living with me. I was a single dad for the 3rd time. I had 10 kids, but 4 of them were living with me. 3 were grown up and married, and 3 were with, I hate to say this because it sounds so awful, one of my 3 exes, okay? But anyway, I was getting ready to go party, and all of a sudden I felt this urge to turn on the television. Now, that doesn't sound like anything, except I picked up the remote and looked at it and realized I didn't know how. I wasn't a TV watcher, and I'd had, some electronics guy come put in big stuff because that's what you buy, right? But I didn't know how to turn it on. So one of my daughter's 16-year-old daughter came in and punched some buttons and turned it on and threw the remote at me, dipweed, and left the room. And it landed on a program I'd never heard of, but I didn't watch TV, so I'd never heard of any of them. And it was titled Intervention. Now, if you know what that is, that's a reality TV show about families who stage interventions for busted loved ones, right? And the protagonist in this particular episode was a high-ranking executive with a cocaine problem. So I watched myself, essentially, on TV for about 10 minutes, and I said, yeah, I'm not watching this crap. I turned it off, and I went and did some other stuff and was ready to go out, and then I had to turn the TV back on. I was compelled to do that. And I don't know why or whatever. So I picked up the remote, and this time I knew how. So I turned it on, and that program started over. And no, I don't have a DVR. And no, it wasn't on the TV schedule. And no, it can't do that. I got it, but it did. So it freaked me out. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to watch this. So I watched the program. It went really badly. The guy yelled at his family and denied he had a problem and stomped out and, all that stuff. But it freaked me out. So after the program was over, I didn't go out to party. I went to bed. And when I went to bed, I went to hell. And what I mean by that is I felt like I was somewhere out of body, and I was in like a theater, and on the stage were all these scenes, and they were scenes from my life, starting for when I was young, all the suffering that had been inflicted on me, all the way through my adult time, all the suffering I had inflicted on everybody else with my problems and addictions and everything else. And I've never felt such a parade of pain. I don't have the words to describe it. But anyway, it went on for a long, long time. And then there was a voice that said, it is enough. I woke up, and it was weird because the sun was shining in the window, and the windows faced west. And I thought, something's wrong here. I got up, and it was 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So I'd been somewhere for nearly 18 hours.
Wow.
And I got up and said, okay, I don't know how to do this, and I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I've been invited to change. Okay. So I knew I had to change everything, and I wasn't sure where to begin. So I threw away $1,000 worth of stuff, drugs and stuff I had laying around, and quit cold turkey that day, all at once. And that was the first part, and that dealt with getting sober, but it didn't do anything about the depression and inner struggles, the mindset that I had lived with for my whole life. That happened 2 weeks later. So I didn't leave the job I had right away. It was actually contract. I had a whole bunch of contracts, made a lot of money. So in the positions I had, because I made a lot of decisions that affected other companies, I used to get a lot of free stuff. Like they would give me tickets to this and free expensive bottles of booze, and like I needed booze, but free stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be nice to Kellan. And so one of the things I got was a pair of tickets to see a Yo-Yo Ma concert. Now, I don't know if you know who Yo-Yo Ma is. If you're in the classical world, you do. And if you don't, that's fine. But in the classical world, that's like, he's as big of a deal as it gets. And I thought it would be a terrible shame to waste this other ticket, because I was, single, and I didn't want to waste this ticket, expensive ticket to see what's his face, and I really wanted to go. So I asked in the groups that I managed who likes classical music, and some lady in one of the groups said, well, I do. And I looked at her and I said, have I ever given you anything before? And she said, no. And I said, okay, fine. See you there. So I gave her the ticket, and we met at the venue, and the concert was spectacular. And halfway through, I had this feeling come over me that I recognized from 2 weeks earlier. And the voice said to me, you need to marry this woman. And I said, you're insane. I don't even know if she has a boyfriend. And first of all, and because this wasn't a date, it was just concert. And I can't, what are you talking about? I screwed that up badly 3 times with some other messes in between. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. No. And so later that night, we were backstage because they were, backstage passes and all that stuff. And the voice came back and said, yeah, and you need to tell her tonight. And I freaked out. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But you don't win those arguments. So I did, and it went about like you would have expected. Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? And the thing that was scared me too is she could have me arrested, right? I mean, she worked in one of my groups for harassment or whatever, but she didn't. She didn't have me arrested, so that was the good news. She acted like you would have expected. Are you out of your mind? I mean, come on. But anyway, so within 2 weeks, she had her own set of experiences. And she quit the job that she had, which was a very, very nice job. She was a project manager in one of the groups that I had. I walked away from millions of dollars of contracts, and we just sort of walked off into the sunset together to start over with no idea what to do. And that and 4 months ago, we just celebrated our 14th wedding anniversary. Now, as crazy as that story is from a love perspective, the thing that matters more than anything is that she was literally the angel who was sent to help me learn how to be a person, learn how to tell the truth, learn how to have a friend, learn how to be a friend, to get some help with this depression, to talk to counselors, to do something I had never done in my entire life, and I'm 52 years old. So from those 2 events, I accepted the invitation to do something different. And from that place, I've done all the stuff that you said. So that's the story of what happened. And I've, the person I am today and the person I was 15 years ago, you wouldn't recognize. And so that's the change. And here's the thing that's really important. I'm not important. I'm not a big deal. I'm just a person just like you. Whoever you are listening to this, you're exactly as important as I am. And that's number 1. Number 2 is it doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter where you are right now. It doesn't matter how old you are or how long you've waited or how many things have happened or how many times you've told yourself it's too late and I can't do this. None of that matters. It's never too late to create a difference and to serve with your divine gifts and to create purpose, prosperity, and joy. So that's there's one other point I want to make, and then I'll stop for a sec. And that is this. Every single one of you have felt that divine intuition at different times. Felt that pull, I should do this. I don't know why, but we've all felt that. Mostly we ignore it. Sometimes it's little and sometimes it's furious. And in my case, it was a 2x4. But even when those things happen, we still have to say yes, because they're always just invitations. And nobody did the work for me, and nobody will do the work for you. But learning to say yes to those intuitions and invitations is always step one.
That's wonderful. While you're sharing the entire story of this, I just thought that, does anyone actually ask you that the story of yours could be perhaps to be in a movie or maybe a TV show? Because it's wonderful, right?
Yeah, several. I've never really tried to do that. I have a friend actually who made a feature-length film about something else. And so I have a resource. I know exactly how to do it, or could know exactly how to do it. But I've never, people have suggested it. Yes, it is movie worthy. It is easily the kind of thing with enough spectacular contrast and unbelievable stuff. And so that's one of the reasons I've written as many books as I have. I wrote about that in Tightrope of Depression, my journey from darkness, despair, and death to light, love, and life. And out of the learnings that have come to me along the road of doing the work, I've written all the rest of the books about, how to overcome fear. I have one book called Walking Without Fear. And I have another book about called The Results Equation, which is about how to get things done. And all those things have come out of the experiences that I've had after that invitation and after I said yes.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned many times about fear and the all of this formula that can bring us to greatness. So we got to move forward to the first question that I have right now, which you actually covered this in the episode of your podcast, your ultimate life formula. So my question is that, how does self-doubt monster affect greatness? And how can we shift? Like you said that, once we allow ourselves to say yes to that invitation and really take that gift, and offer to that world. So first is, how does this affect, and how can you help us or other people to shift and believing that we have something to offer in this world and really move forward from there?
It's a fabulous question. Self-doubt is not something we're born with. So let's think about a baby learning to walk who never stops and says, this is too hard, I think I'll crawl the rest of my life. Or never looks around and says, gee, too many people are watching me, I must suck, I'm so embarrassed, I think I'll just crawl. We don't do that when we're young. Self-doubt is homegrown. We learn from our society, competition, being ranked and judged. We internalize the idea that we're not good enough because we were judged inadequate a million times in school, in grades, in competitions, in sports, in family, in whatever. Okay. So it's important to understand, number one, that isn't who we really are. We weren't born that way. We created it, we accepted it, we learned it along the way. Well, that's really good news, because if I can learn something, I can learn something else. If I can learn something unhealthy, I can unlearn that. And that's important to understand. The truth is you're a divine being. You and me, we were created by the same creator. We were given gifts and talents when we came here. We know that in our hearts. And then we lean into that creepy stuff we learned that says, yeah, but my gifts aren't important. Yeah, but nobody would care. Yeah, but my story's not interesting. Yeah, but. And we say that, and I spell it, Y-A-B-U-T, yabbit, which means yeah, but. But we say it, yeah, but, you know what I mean? Like the chorus to a very bad song, okay? And it's not true. And so That's the first thing. Understand that it's not true. It's something we've all learned in more
Right.
and less degrees. And the choice you have today, again, you can't change the past, and neither can I. All that disaster I went through, there's messes I still have to clean up. Of my 10 kids, some of them still don't talk to me. I've got lots of opportunity and work to do there, and it's wonderful. I'm grateful and it's exciting. And so you can start where you are. No matter what's behind you, tomorrow is empty. Today, the rest of today is empty. The future is blank. And you can ask yourself a simple question. What if I didn't have that story? What if I believed I was powerful? What if I, right now, at this moment, I don't care what anybody else is thinking or doing, what if right this minute, I believed with all my heart, all the way down to the core, that I was sacred, that I was capable, that I was wonderful, that I was precious, that I was valuable, that I was powerful? What would I do if I believed that? And I'm not asking you to fight with your beliefs. Just pretend for a minute. What if I believed that? Well, two things are going to happen. First of all, it feels wonderful just to consider the space of believing that. If you sit and think, what if I was connected and powerful? And what if all those things were good? What would I do right now? Just thinking about that makes you feel good. And then I had just a client call earlier today. And in that conversation, I asked him a question that was pretty much like that because of something else that was going on. And he laughed and he said, well, if I believed with all my heart that I was valuable and capable in this particular area, and we were talking about something, if I believed that and with all my heart and everything else, why, I'd be excited and I'd go do this and I'd go do that. And I said, isn't that interesting? Because whether we do something, try something, talk to somebody or not, is all dependent on what we think, what we believe about somebody else's action. They'll like me, they won't like me, they'll listen, they won't listen. And so here's the game. You ask, how do you fix this? Here's how you fix it. Play the game. Well, if I believed all this other stuff, good stuff, then of course I would go talk to the next person. I'd make the next phone call. I would introduce myself. I would do that Facebook Live. I would take this next step if I believed that it was good. Okay, well, I'm not asking you to fight with your beliefs, but play the game. Do it anyway, just to see what happens. When we fight with our beliefs and we go, I got to believe something. Yeah, okay, that's too hard. Just play a game. What would happen if I believed that? Well, I do this. Well, then go do it just to see what happens. And here's what does happen. More often than not, we have unexpected outcomes. Whatever the thing we were worried about usually doesn't happen. Okay, it's usually more okay than we thought. And then that gives rise to at least the possibility of, maybe it's not as awful as I thought it was. And if you just play the game of what if I believed this, what would I do? Well, I'd do this. I would boldly declare that. I would write this. I would post that. I would talk to them.
Yeah.
And try it. And what happens is you end up with a pile of unexpected outcomes. And when you have this pile of unexpected outcomes, they're not guesses anymore, they're real. And then you look at your old belief and you look at this new pile and you say, I could actually believe something else because look what happened. And you can start a process of changing beliefs without fighting with them, just by playing the game of what if I was good enough? What would I do? Well, if I knew I was good enough, and down that road.
That just reminds me the client that I spoke today. We talked about posting, because since you mentioned publish, I said, what dragging you? Well, nothing actually. And said, well, why not do it? I think you're right. And that's wonderful to hear. And I think it's very valuable for a lot of people that self-doubt is not something that we're born with. It's over time we learn and accept, and we thought that it's within us. And now we know that this is not truth, and we can unlearn that. So most of us, we can practice to unlearn that slowly. And like what Kellan said, play with it and just think of what if. I think that's wonderful to think of. That's part of the challenge as well, right? Because you have fear. What if? Yeah, I have this fear, and I will do it anyway. And then posting this episode for Empower Your Life, I have all of those negative thoughts. People would be thinking this, da, 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 who am I to say this? Who am I to post this? But I always challenge myself that I'll do it anyway.
You know what,
Because
Cindy? I'll tell you who you are. You're a delightful, capable beacon of light. You're a wonderful person who's trying to add good to the world. You have a contagious smile and a happy spirit and a joyful determination to help the world. That's who you are. I know because I'm looking at it.
thank you. Thank you. To add on that, for other people that we have really gift in our life, that if we listen to it, and going back to what you said earlier, just to say yes to that invitation, there will be really magical that could happen, right? And I want you to help us understand now fear. What is really fear? And it's not something that we overcome, but it's something that we embrace. And how you, as a mentor or a coach or keynote speaker, can help us to embrace that fear as part of the greatness within us.
I have a coach that I have worked with who asks a question. He pulls out his checkbook and he said, I will write a check right now of $1 million to the person that can bring me, and he holds up his hands, a cup of fear. Bring me a cup of fear, and I'll give you a check for $1 million. And of course, everybody laughs, only not really, kind of half laughs, because we all have the visceral knowledge of the truth of the experience of fear. Mm-hmm. But as his illustration demonstrates, it is not real. I cannot put it in a cup and hand him a cup of fear. All right, so here's what it is. Fear is a bunch of neurochemistry. Fear is your bloodstream chemistry that causes the knot in your stomach, the knot in your throat, the uptightness wherever it shows up in your body. So that's what fear is, and where it comes from is believing a thought. Your organs do not produce the neurochemistry until you believe a thought. If you see a blob of something on the counter in the kitchen, you don't have fear. If you look at that same blob and you believe with all your heart that it is an explosive and it might blow your brains out, then you have fear. And it is because of that belief. You believe a thought. Thoughts don't have any power by themselves, not until you believe them. So if you're experiencing fear, just understand that. Okay, I'm believing something. I'm believing some thought. What is the thought? And you do this without drama, because one of the things people do is, well, I suck because I'm this, and I'm stupid because of that, and I shouldn't. Drop all that drama. Just ask the question, what thought am I believing that makes me afraid to go post something on social media, do a Facebook Live, talk to a potential client, approach somebody, introduce myself at a networking meeting? Like, what am I believing? Okay, well, usually, I don't know what your answer is going to be, but usually it's something like this. I believe they won't like me. I believe they'll think I'm stupid, weird, wrong, trying to sell them something pushy. So it's one of those lists of negative things. So I believe they will think X. And believing they will think X and gives rise to all that fear. Okay, cool. Now you understand, and I understand where it comes from. It comes from believing a thought. Now then the next question is, okay, do I know they will think that? Well, of course I don't have any idea actually what they're going to think. So I'm making stuff up. So, I'm believing a thought that isn't true. Wow, that's interesting. I wonder how many places in my life I'm believing thoughts that aren't true, because I have no idea what they're going to think. And in fact, the truth is most people aren't thinking about you at all. Whatever you're doing or saying, they're not. And so if you want to overcome that fear, and overcome's a bad word because that sounds like you beat it to death. Just choose a different path. Yes, I'm allowed to believe this thought that isn't true, that says they're going to think I suck in some way. I'm rude, ignorant, something. And you're allowed to do that. You've done it a million times, and you know right where that road goes. It leads to the feeling of fear, the knot in your stomach, and either you don't say anything, don't post anything, or you do it and you do a crappy job, you look nervous, and it's weird. Okay, so you know where that road goes. What about a different road? What if I believe that they will want to talk to me? What if I believe that they are really cool and I really want to get to know them? What if instead of just wanting, what if I really, not pretend, want to get to know them? What if I care about who they are and what they're doing here? What if I quit worrying about what they think about me, because I actually don't know that anyway? What if instead I choose to do something I can control, which is think something really good about them and believe it? Oh, if I believe something really good about them, then I actually want to go talk to them. I want to get to know them. And you know what? Believing that thought then creates another set of chemicals in your bloodstream. And that chemical set is one of, I'm excited to talk to them. I want to go say hello. I'm leaning into this conversation. I have an energetic positivity that's aglow about this. And you know where all that came from? That whole dance took place in your head.
Yes.
Not a single thing was outside of your head. And so you went from, I'm scared to death, this person's going to think I'm stupid, to, I can't wait to say hello because I can't wait to get to know about them. And that whole drama took place here.
That's wonderful.
Mastery of that process of choosing what to believe and believing in love and positivity and growth and wanting to get to know somebody, and, you know, instead of worrying about you, focus on them. If you master that, all of that fear will evaporate.
Everyone choose to believe with love, faith, and all of that positive energy towards other people rather than focusing on you. That's a good shift, I think. And also what you mentioned earlier, that it's all in here, that there's no guarantee, or we have no proof that's what they actually thinking about us. So, and I totally agree with you. It's all in our thoughts, right? It's all in our mind, and we are sabotaging ourselves. And you mentioned it clearly that we have to believe with something. And by believing that, this is also very powerful, that your words are powerful, right? That your words have power towards your greatness. And I truly agree on that. But I know that there are a lot of people somehow pessimistic on that it's not true. I mean, how can you say that words are powerful? So, because I truly believe that, I practice to myself that I'd rather think of positivity. I'd rather to speak more into positive terminologies or positive conversation rather than focusing on negativity, because that will drain my energy. Now, that works for me, but there will be a lot of people out there that rather still choosing to think of negative thoughts, negative words. So what's your thought on your words have power towards greatness?
So there's a book. There's a guy named Dr. Martin Seligman who wrote a book called Learned Optimism. And he did a 20-year study. It's the largest study of its kind ever done, thousands of people and everything else. And, you know, we have the idea, the word optimist and the word pessimist. And instead of using those words, we call people that are optimistic, oh, you're Pollyanna, you're not connected to reality, you're thinking too positive. And people that are pessimistic, we call them realists. And we honor and enshrine the idea that I'm just being realistic.
Yeah,
Well, let me tell you the truth. This 20-year study revealed something really interesting. So let's define positivity or optimism and pessimism or negativity or realism if you want. Let's define that. An optimist is someone who chooses to believe there is a solution to whatever problem they're facing. That's it.
Yes.
I choose to believe there's a way to fix this or do something.
Yes.
I choose to believe that. A pessimist is the person, or realist or something, is the person who chooses to generally believe it's not really possible and the best we can do is tough it out. Okay, I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna drag my way. So that's one point of view, and that's a choice. You can choose to believe there's a solution, or you can choose to believe that there really isn't. Excuse me, I'm gonna tough it out. Now here's what his 20-year study revealed. Tens of thousands, I think it was actually hundreds of thousands of people in the study, followed him for 20 years. People who chose to be optimistic, to believe that there are solutions, made more money. Sports figures did better on the playing field. In other words, they scored more home runs, scored more touchdowns, hit more home runs, did better on the field in professional sports than their counterparts who were equally talented, who chose to think negatively. They got more promotions, their relationships lasted longer, and they lived on an average of 4 to 7 years longer. So you can choose to be negative, but it's a very costly choice. It'll cost you years of your life, tons of money in your bank account, positions at your company, relationship success, and general misery. So you're free to choose to believe there's a solution and find it, or believe there isn't and tough it out. That choice is all on you.
Yeah.
And the consequences are not trivial. They are massive.
Awesome. I love it. I love the power of choice, that we definitely have choice. And that's something for sure. And that's something, the truth. And guys, he mentioned the consequences between choosing negative thoughts or negative words to believe in versus the positive thoughts, and what you can achieve of choosing those. So it's all on you. Here in this episode is where we are giving you the information that works for me, and I truly believe works for Kellan, obviously. And we choose to believe that there's always solution. We choose to believe that there's always love. We choose to believe that there's always patience, faith, and understanding, despite the negativity that we are encountering.
Here's what I know. I lived for my story. The reason I told you a big, long story to start with is I lived for 50 years on the other side. I lived for 50 years hating myself. I lived for 50 years believing I wasn't good enough. I lived for 50 years thinking of these problems. And even though I made a lot of money, I was miserable. I was killing myself. I attempted suicide twice. I was a drug addict, and I had 3 failed relationships. Okay, that was the consequence of my choice. The only thing that changed was I got a really strong 2x4 invitation to consider a new path. It didn't change anything else. It was an invitation. Well, you're getting an invitation right here, right now. And it's coming out of my mouth and out of Cindy's, and my bitter experience bears witness to the truth of the negative side and the truth of the positive side, because since I chose and began the lifelong pursuit, it doesn't change in an instant. You don't snap your fingers or anything, but chose the lifelong pursuit of choosing love, forgiveness, positivity, creativity, because I can, not because anybody made me. I don't need anybody's permission, and neither do you. I don't need anybody's agreement, and neither do you.
Yes.
So choosing that has now given me a day where I love every single day. From first breath in the morning to last breath at night, I only do one thing. And the one thing I do is I've committed this year to helping 10 million people discover, develop, and serve with their divine gifts. And I love every minute of every day that I breathe. And so I have lived on the other side it took me a long time, 52 years before I woke up. And now I have 14 years, and I can't wait. And the other day I turned, 3-4 months ago, I turned 66. And I figured that was half. So I Got 66 years to go. I'm going to live till I'm 132. Why? Because I said so.
Um,
And
yeah.
I am going to live in that positivity that I choose to have and create and love every minute and every person to my last breath.
There you go. You guys, the choice is yours. Choose wisely. It's like voting. Anyway, moving to my last question for this wonderful, powerful, really, really valuable episode so far. Incredible answers you're giving us. Of course, choosing to believe the positivity. This is going to my favorite question will be, how do you keep yourself optimistic? Now, you covered many times of choosing to believe to positivity. So let's talk about a little bit about activities. So what makes you optimistic every day with regard to the activities that you do? So perhaps that's something also for the rest of the listeners or viewers can learn from. Maybe they never tried about it, and perhaps they can experiment about it and will work for them. So how do you keep yourself
So what
optimistic?
I do is I do something every single day. It isn't magic. I'm not, covered with pixie dust because that thing happened 14 and a half years ago. Every single day, without exception, I do something, not because I have to, not because anybody made me, but because it makes me feel good. And do you know what that is? It brings me to that positive place. And I'll tell you what it is. It's not a secret. I, on purpose, every day do something I call a morning ritual. And the morning ritual, the way I teach it, starts out at 40 minutes. Mine lasts about 2.5 to 3 hours. Not because I have to, but because the more I do it, the more powerful it gets. And the more I get done. And people say, how can you spend 3 hours doing that and still get your stuff done? And my answer is, I'll get more done in the rest of the day than you do by double. Want to bet? Kind of feeling, right? So here's what I do. I have a word, an acronym, and it's SPEM, S-P-E-M, and it stands for spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental. And here's what I do and how I teach it. I say, when you get up every day, don't dive into email and text and phone and anything negative. Take care of your heart and yourself. You're a divine being and you need the utmost care, attention, and love. So S is first, spiritual. Now, I don't know what your spiritual connection is or view or anything else. I use prayer and meditation. I do not end that process until I feel fully connected with the divine. I feel powerful. I feel loved and I'm clear about that connection. And I do that every single day. P is physical. I spend time, some amount, somewhere between 15 and 45 minutes, doing some physical stuff. It isn't complicated. I did martial arts for a lot of years, so I do a lot of stretching, and I have a bicycle I ride indoors because it's cold up here in the winter, and so it doesn't matter what it is. You can stretch, you can do floor X, you can do body weight exercises, sit-ups, push-ups, whatever it is. Stretching, yoga-ish stuff is beautiful. It puts you very much in a spiritual connection with the body. But the point is, honor your body. The third thing is E. E stands for emotional, and to me that includes all of your relationships. So I will take time and I will go through my Facebook Messenger and I will go through my texts. And I don't use WhatsApp or Telegraph, but you could do that. And I look at every name for just a split second and wait for intuition. And there will be half a dozen that will strike me as I need to love this person. It might be a repair attempt on a relationship if something's not right. It might be just an expression of kindness and love. It might be nurturing something. But intentionally, I am focusing on sending love to a group of people that simply come to me. And if you practice it, the names will come. You'll know who you're supposed to reach out to. And if you do that every day, imagine if you did 5 or 6 a day. In a month, you've done that 150 times. It bears fruit. People respond. Love grows our internal capacity and our internal strength. M stands for mental. I have about 30 books over here I'm in the middle of, so I'll read a chapter or 2 or 3 or 4 in a book. And because I love reading so much, I've developed a method of reading really fast, so I read a lot. But it doesn't matter, slow or fast. The point is to stimulate your mental capacity and strength. And when you have done all of those, you are connected to yourself, to your God, to people around you, to the source of love, and you can start every single day from a place of power, not out of magic, but because you have done to make it so. So I do that every day, and I create power every day by doing that.
That's wonderful. So remember the spiritual, what is the P?
SPEM, physical.
Sorry, physical, emotional, and mental. So it can be actually, he mentioned what he does, and you can actually work around with that SPEM, and really will make you connected. I truly believe, it's always have to start morning ritual. I call it morning routine. And it's the same way I actually do the last one of connecting with the people. That's funny when you're saying that you check the Facebook, and because I do that after I did the rest of the other morning routine. And it's very interesting because you have that, I don't have that list, to tick, but you just feel great that you have that, okay, I managed to complete what makes me feel great to start my day with. So guys, remember that SPEM, whatever works for you that you can create on that structure, and see what magical will bring to you, and start with the day. And I think that could be really wonderful and incredible to start with, and practicing consistently. Maybe there will be a lot of resistance in the beginning, but challenge ourselves.
Here's the thing to do with resistance. People tell me all the time, oh, I don't have time to do that. Or, oh, it's so hard, I forgot. You know what? Then you're doing it wrong. I wouldn't skip it because it makes me feel so good. So if you hate it, then you have to ask yourself, you hate feeling good? No, I don't hate feeling good. Okay, what is it about that you're doing that you don't like? Like I have 10 different ways that I might do the S, or 10 different ways I might do the P. I might take a walk. I might sit on the floor and do some stretches. I might go ride the elliptical downstairs. I might do a bunch of different things. But the point isn't, I'm going to force myself to do this white knuckle clench. No, the point is you're honoring your life, who you're being, your spirit, your body, your emotion connections, your friends and loved ones, and your mind by reading something. So if you don't want to read this book today, pick another one. That's why I've got 30 I'm in the middle of. I pick the one that calls to me. And so I wouldn't start my day without my morning ritual. I call it a daily creation process, but morning ritual or routine is a popular name. I wouldn't start my day without that any more than I'd run outside in the freezing winter in -40 naked in the snow. You just don't. Why? Because I feel so good when I do it. So if you hate it and you're struggling with it, fiddle with it. Find out what makes you feel good. Yes. And then it will be something that calls to you instead of something you're fighting with.
Amen to that. But I think, I don't know if you would agree, but I would say practicing little by little.
Absolutely.
Because obviously it's not something that the body and the mind and the thought already adjusted. So for a lot of people would feel that way, that it's so difficult. But if you practice, for Kellan, he mastered it for 2.5 hours. You don't have to do the same.
No, start with something tiny, 5 minutes a piece, 20 minutes, yes, or 10 precisely. Minutes a piece. Absolutely. That's the way I teach it. 10, 10, 10, 10. And what you're doing is you're giving yourself a 40-minute gift that you're going to feel great afterwards, and honor and love yourself, all the pieces in it. And yeah, it takes a little discipline if you're not used to it. There's no question about that. I'm not pretending that away. What I am saying very clearly is it is rewarding enough that it's worth the effort to play with it until it's fun and it calls to you, instead of, oh, I got this stupid thing somebody said I should do. Right?
Yes. So, little by little, because that's little still a progress, and play around, experiment, be always curious, and listen to that invitation and just say yes and see what happens. So, my God, learning so much. I believe that most of the listeners and viewers as well do learn so many things on this episode. For those people who wants to get connected with you, perhaps in US, in Canada, or neighboring around your area, or even on online, because everything now can be on online, right? For as long as we can match time-wise, where can they
My
find
clients
you?
are all over the world. So I have
There you
clients
go.
in Australia and in Mexico and in Canada and the US and Europe and all over the place. So here's the thing. If you want to connect with me, here's the fun part that I say.
All
With a
right.
weird name like Kellan Fluckiger, I can't hide. So if you can't find me, the only reason is A, you're actually not looking, or B, you spelled my name wrong. So the only thing you have to do to find me on YouTube or on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Amazon with all the books or on
Ooh.
Google is spell my name right. And you can connect with me, and you can send me messages, and I'll be happy to chat with you and do whatever makes sense. Because like I said, my goal is to help 10 million people to discover, develop, and serve with their divine gifts.
You can never have reason not to find Kellan Fluckiger. Did I pronounce the last name correct?
Perfect. Kellan Fluckiger. It's a very complicated name. When I was doing that big dog stuff in the industry, I was a one-name guy. Everybody knew just Kellan, probably because my last name was so hard to say. But Fluckiger. That was exactly right.
Fluckiger. I mean, I don't find it difficult. I just, the enunciation might be different. But anyway, for everyone out there, you resonate with the approach of Kellan, and it will be happy to serve and assist you whatever he can. Just reach out and message him at Kellan Fluckiger. It's either LinkedIn, Facebook, or you can also subscribe to his Your Ultimate Life Formula. Let me tell you one thing. Your podcast is actually part of my resources for my clients.
Thank you. I'm honored, and I appreciate that. That's my labor of love. I'm on episode 665 or 6 or something. I'll be at 700 pretty soon, and I suppose I'll quit. I've got a rhythm that makes it easy. It's only 15 minutes a day, and so.
Yes, it's very productive for most of the people that believe that you don't have that much of time. Your time is precious, but you still want to be productive. Your Ultimate Life Formula is something that you can have to subscribe on your podcast or even on your YouTube. So there you go. Kellan, for the last question for this episode, if someone bumped in you, perhaps, let's say, outside, like you're running or you're walking, you're having your morning, your ritual, and then someone recognizes you. Hey, I know you. You're that person behind your Ultimate Life Formula. If there's something that you can give this person an advice that, hey, I have a terrible relationship with addiction, and I want to get out of it, but I don't know how. What can you share, principle or practice or advice to this guy that you bumped in?
Two things. Yeah, two things. Number one, every piece of personal development starts with self-love. And if you're addicted to anything, it's because you don't love yourself. If you truly love, like if you loved someone, you wouldn't feed him poison. You just wouldn't do that. So you're not loving yourself, and that's not an indictment. And I'm not saying you don't love yourself. I'm just saying you don't. So start exploring that. How can I truly love myself? And if the answer is I don't because I suck and all that stuff, then that's where part 2 comes in. Don't hesitate to get help. I didn't go talk to a shrink until I was 52. Like I kept all that inside and rode that roller coaster of madness alone. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I was too afraid, too much stigma. Blame whatever you want. But the truth is, Here's the truth. Gee, I went, I did, I wrote the books, I talked to people, I told everybody everything, and I'm open about all of it. And wow, I feel way better. I've helped a lot of people, and it's really cool. And that's way different than, ooh, I got to hide because I'm afraid and I hate myself and people might think XYZ. So focus on loving yourself and get the help you need, whatever your behavior is that is getting in the way of living your ultimate life.
Awesome. That's wonderful to end of our episode, guys. It starts with loving yourself and start from there. So thank you so much, Kellan. It has been a very wonderful conversation with you for sharing wonderful story and again, principles or practices that I truly believe a lot of listeners or viewers would learn or have learned for today. And hopefully it will bring inspiration and really taking action for what they deserve to be in the greatness of the life that they want to have. And so for the rest of the people, if you find this video very valuable, don't hesitate to share it over to those who will be benefiting, because the more you share, the more that our website and our Empower Your Life show will grow organically. And don't forget, Kellan Fluckiger, the person that you feel resonate with and you would like to get to know him more, just reach out. So thank you, Kellan, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. I again honor you for the work you're doing in your labor of love. I appreciate being here.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy that interview and I hope you find it inspiring and motivating. Remember, stay optimistic and keep taking action slowly but surely for your big dreams. Thank you once again, and I'll see you on the next episode here at Empower Your Life.